Do you want a controller that'll give you an advantage when you play games but won't make you go broke at the bank? Stay tuned. I got something for you. What's going on, everybody? It's Jarmy D back again, and I'm finally bringing you that review of the Avenger Controller Defcon 4 setup I promised. I tested it out for several months now, or a few months, or whatever you want to call it, long enough for me to make a decision on how good or bad it is, and I tell you, I am well pleased with the product. I purchased the Defcon 4 setup mainly to make sure that I got every single edition of the controller, or little implement to the controller, so that I could test out every aspect of it, and I got just that. It came with the Avenger controller, the Edge, which gives you the added press of the X button, and it also gives you the bionic gels. Now, this thing is awesome. Basically, what it does is it gives you the ability to press all of the action buttons without removing your right thumb from the analog stick. Now, you might be thinking, well, that's what a SCUF does. Well, up until recently, to the best of my knowledge, SCUF did not even give you the ability to touch all 4 buttons without removing your finger from the thumbstick. So, the Avenger does just that. Now, what it does is it has these little arms that reach out and allow your fingers to flip the buttons. They also have adjustment screws on here so you can set up the sensitivity and get everything tuned in the way you like it. And it also comes with triggers that allow you to rapid fire or set up a rapid fire style controller. Now, all these things are in one package, and they are a whole lot cheaper than a SCUF controller. So, that being said, good product, you guys. However, I do have a few things that I would like to point out here and show you a couple modifications I've made. Now, I did not particularly care for the reversing or inverting of the triggers. I personally like the way the trigger layout is on the PlayStation, and I'm not used to using the bottom R2 trigger or L2 trigger to do my scoping and shooting. I know this is a customary Xbox setup, but I don't too much care for it. I prefer to use the upper buttons as my aim and shoot, and the lower buttons as my secondaries or whatever. Now, I played this way for a while to try to get used to it, and I did get used to it. I got to where I could play pretty decent with it, but like I say, I just never was really comfortable with it. I always found myself, kind of fumbling around, and when I'd go to other games, I'd have to readjust because the Avenger just didn't work for those games, and I just, I found it works great with shooter games and those type of games, but not so much with my racing games and things like that. It kind of gets in the way a little bit. But anyway, the other thing that I found is as soon as I started playing with this thing, with the addition of the Edge, I found my thumb really hits those adjustment screws, and I really didn't like that. Every now and then I get an involuntary jump, and it also pushed my Edge kind of out of center to the X button. When I initially installed it, it was perfectly center, but after using it and using it and using it and practicing with it, finally it pushed over to the right a little bit so that it wasn't directly on top of the button. Now, after I'd played with it a while, set up the way it was, got used to it, started, having to raise my finger. I'm really lazy. I like to lay the whole part of my thumb on top of the analog stick when I play. So, like I say, it would crash into those extension pieces for the adjustment screws pretty frequently. So I got to thinking and decided that I was going to take it to work and pull out the calipers, do a little measuring, and buy myself some screws that I could replace it with, or buy some bolts that I could shorten and grind specifically to fit. And I had to do just that. Just buying some set screws and throwing in there would not work. So basically, I examined the controller, figured out how the adjustment screws come out, disassembled those, uh, before I disassembled them, I measured them for their lengths, and they all were different. So I had to make specific link studs for each individual one, reinstall them into the controller, and now I have a nice low profile, easy clearance, no thumb crashing controller. It's worked out really, really great. Also, like I said, I didn't like the trigger setup, so I removed the triggers. They're gone. And I also removed the stationary pad. I don't even know what they call the little extender on the bottom. That little wrist. I found that it was just kind of in the way, and decided just to go and take it off while I was at it. And I actually like the way the controller looks better without it. So I know it's needed for the triggers, but since I'm not using the triggers, don't really need the stand. So I popped that right off there too. And as you can see now, I have a really, really nice streamlined controller, a nice Defcon 4 setup. Another thing I will note is the gel pads. Now, when you get these gel pads, they do not stick very well. I mentioned this on my first video. And you can actually take those, stick two of them together, and that allows you to glue the actual concave portion of one of the gels to the domed side of the PlayStation analog stick. That makes a whole lot better mating surface than the flat surface, because you don't get as much with that flat surface. You just do not get enough surface contact, so it does not adhere to that stick at all. So if you take two of those, glue them together, glue the two flat sides together, and then glue the concave part onto the top of the dome, that'll make a nice little control freak for you. Then you'll have one, probably I don't know, it's probably the height of maybe a set of snipers, or a little bit taller than a set of classics, but works out really well. It'll make you want to buy a set of control freaks, which it did me. So that was another thing I noticed. I'm not really going to show you in the video, but when I threw my control freaks on the controller, they actually crashed into the bumpers as well, or the adjustment screws as well. So anyway, that's all I have on the controller itself. I want to say thank you to Falcon 1974. He's the one, his channel's where I picked this up at. I also used his discount code to pick up my controller setup. I think he had a 10% discount code at the time. Maybe it was 30, heck, I can't remember. But just go on over and check him out and get your discount code, and also check out some great content. You can get his link to his channel in the description below, or on my featured channels up on the right hand side. Thanks again for that, Falcon, and thank you guys for sticking around and watching this video. I really appreciate it. Please hit that like button and share it around Twitter and things, so a lot of people can come by and see it. My first one did really well. And if you like this one as well, please hit that subscribe button, like, favorite, do all that good stuff, whatever they're supposed to say. I don't know. I'm still learning this whole game, but hope y'all enjoyed, and I'll catch you on the next one.